Hi, my name is Simon Headley, known to my clients and partners as a strategic alchemist and an ultimate connector. I'm a chartered accountant who brings together and bridges the worlds of business philosophy, finance, marketing, optimization, ontology, and so much more. Always focused on one thing, the simple idea that can make the difference to people and projects so we can tip the scales in their favor and get them complete. Pause, Stop, Reset is all about the three little words that can make the difference. They have for me and my clients, and I hope they will for you too. During the show, you'll get to learn about my guests' real-life experiences and the insights and lessons they've learned as they've navigated the resets in their personal and business lives, which you'll be able to leverage yourself. So let's start the show. Hello, I'm Simon Headley, and welcome to today's episode of Pause, Stop, Reset. Today I'm joined by Paul Ross. He's the author of two books, the most recent being The Subconscious Sales Advantage, How to Increase Your Sales by 30% or More in only 90 Days. He's also been an international speaker and deep in post-development, master training in hypnosis and NLP, and he's really passionate about helping people experience that exponential growth in sales, not little small changes. So without further ado, Paul, welcome to Pause, Stop, Reset.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Simon. And as you're listening and or watching this episode today, I'm not sure all the places you might stop, take a breath, and naturally and easily find yourself feeling a growing excitement about what it is you're learning something magnificent. But as that's taking place, I feel so wonderful with this opportunity to be addressing and dialoguing with you today, Simon.
We're going to have some fun. You've already begun planting the seed. This will be a magical alchemical episode, I think, Paul. So let's start with the first question, because some people may be listening to you for the first time and may not know who you are, but they haven't kept up with your reset. So who are you and what are you focused on today? Well,
I think there's millions of people around the world who know me as Ross Jeffries, the king of seduction, getting laid, and pickup. So so let's back up. There's a whole community, millions of guys. It's called the Manosphere and also the PUA, Pickup Artist Sphere. I started the whole thing back in 1988 with my original book called How to Get the Women You Desire into Bed, a down and dirty guide to dating and seduction for the man who's tired of being Mr. Nice Guy. And so I built a whole career on free publicity. I don't know if you can see that guy behind me. Can you tell who that is?
It's hard. There's a black and white newspaper, but no, it's hard to see.
It's Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise played my Ross Jeffries character in the movie Magnolia. I have articles on my wall from Rolling Stone, Penthouse, Playboy. I blew up in the late 90s, early 2000s.
You were one of those big names. You were like part of that scene. And do we name them or not name them? There were like 4 or 5 different camps, but you were one of the camps that was there. And you were there early days before all the internet marketing we now know and love, at the head of that stuff, right?
Simon, I am the alpha and the omega. I am still here doing it while the other guys have retired or went off and slunked or went off into a corner and slowly went into the marketing world or whatever it is. So that's how I got my start. And I started studying neuro-linguistic programming way back in 1987 because I was a guy who could not get laid in a woman's prison with a fistful of pardons. I just couldn't do it. I was always the big brother, the buddy, the best friend. You're losing female audience by the droves right now. Every minute I talk.
They're going, I'm out. Like it's that conversation. It's him again. We're going. Yeah.
Oh, no. But so
fast forward to next. You can fast forward. Ladies, fast forward. Yes. No, Karen, going Paul.
There's no fast forwarding through my story. And there's also no learning curve with me. You either love me or hate me right away. There's no learning curve, as an ex-girlfriend said. Anyway, so I got into NLP, and the founder of NLP, Richard Bandler, he's the co-founder of NLP. I'm sure you've heard of him. Richard took a shine to me, took me under his wing. He was on my podcast, The Influencer's Edge, last year. Oddly, that's a pretty big name early on in a podcast. So what happened is, fast forward to 2006 or so, I started getting emails from students who would attach pictures of their families, their children, their wives, and say, thank you very much. You saved my life.
Wow.
You helped me transform my life. And because of what you taught me, I was able to attract a woman of the quality of my wife or my fiance. I have children because of you. Thank you. And they also would say, and by the way, I've been using your stuff for sales and my sales have gone up 300%. Or in a team of 100 people, I'm now number one. And I thought, you fracking idiot. You should go back into your mad scientist language lab and map this over into selling. It took me a few years of a lot of intellectual hard work. Now, I'm a pretty smart guy, if I do say so myself. People called me a genius, and I'd be the last person to argue with that. And so it's a Gary Halbert line. Gary was the greatest copywriter ever. I don't know if you know who Gary was.
Letters, Gary Halbert letters, baby, all the way.
Yeah, I love Gary Halbert. Everything I write is, I have had two great mentors without whom I wouldn't be in business. Richard Bandler, most people know who know me, but then Gary, who taught me how to write copy. That's a horse of a different color. Anyway, so I mapped it over into selling, and now I get crazy, outrageous results for people who are already doing at least $1 million, and they're stuck. It's not that they're not good or even great at what they do, but they're stuck with their own success. They can't move the needle. They're just pressing down harder on the same techniques, or they're hiring more people, but they just can't get to the next level. So I'm coming along and saying, listen, you're doing things. It's like, I have my first book here, and the back cover, I write on my own copy, and it says, are you tired of the same worn out sales scripts, assumed closes, tag questions, and other stale nonsense that just doesn't work, insults your prospect's intelligence, and makes you feel like a schmuck?
That last bit's the key line, right? Because there's stuff that works, but it's like, ugh, when it works, it's not a good thing, right?
So I'm very contrarian in what I have to teach. For example, I say rapport is overrated. Don't make the message clear. Sometimes you have to shock your prospect. You're never selling your product or service. I say a lot of things that both are designed to shock people, but I believe are also true. Because here's the idea that I learned being a healer and teaching seduction, Simon, is it's the very ways of thinking, feeling, acting, responding, reacting, walking through the world that stand so far outside of what you're used to doing, that hold the potential of bringing you results that are so far outside of what you're used to enjoying. And what I do is batshit crazy. For example, this whole idea of you're never selling your product or service. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. Now, what distills out of that is an understanding that decisions are made from different states of consciousness. So rather than ask, how can I create rapport, or how can I sell my product, or how do I do my marketing pitch? The first thing I teach my clients is, what state of mind, what state of consciousness do you want your prospects to be in to receive your message? Can I give you a metaphor?
I'm sure you can. Go ahead.
All right. So I have a sheet of gold foil and a sheet of cardboard. This is not a trick question, by the way, at all. I want to conduct a current of electricity. Which one of those is going to conduct the electricity? It's not a trick. The cardboard or the gold foil?
The gold foil.
Exactly. So consider your prospect's state of mind to be the conductive medium. Do you want them in the cardboard states of being unfocused, doubting themselves? Because, by the way, nowadays, know, like, and trust is no longer enough. Yeah. Now your prospects no longer trust themselves. You've got to get your prospects to trust that they can make a good decision, trust themselves. So what states of mind do you want them in? Do you want them distracted? Because look, one of your number one enemies of making any sale is this thing. And for those of you who are only listening, I'm holding up my iPhone. People's attention. I see people crossing the street in an active intersection, and they're scrolling. They don't even know they're crossing against the red light. I saw a woman with a baby in a pram, as you Brits call it, right? A perambulator.
Pram.
We call it a baby carriage. Crossing the street, not even looking at traffic. And I opened up my car window. I said, "What are you doing? You're bleeping bleep. You moist bent. What are you doing? Are you effing crazy?" So here's the thing. Your prospects, even if they are really, truly interested, and even if they trust you, They're distracted. They're not focused.
Yeah.
You don't have time to spend 5 minutes to create rapport. You just don't have it anymore because people are bombarded.
It's the war of attention, as Gary Vee would say, our friend Gary. Like it's this war now, and it's not just now humans going after it. It's AIs and bots and giant trillion-dollar companies and AI. It's insane trying to get our focus to be where they want to sell some crazy stuff. So I'm with you on that.
The currency of any kind of persuasion, whether it's seduction or whether it's sales or whether it's just personal relationships, is focus. And if you cannot create that focus very quickly, and I show my clients how to do it using hypnotic language, using subconscious communication, and I'll give I actually did it in the beginning of this show, and I didn't say anything specific, did I? I didn't say, today I'm going to be revealing X, Y, and Z. I was very vague in my language, dropped in some embedded commands and suggestions. And by the way, audience, if you go back and replay my beginning little spiel, you'll hear that I didn't say anything specific. But as you listen to it again, you'll feel that growing excitement. You see?
We are going to pause you, Paul, just for a second and come back. We'll come back to that, right? Because I want to get the juice out of you for the show, right? And we'll get that second. So what you get is you've been around a lot of interesting stuff, interesting people, and it's got you the state where you do have the certainty, you've got your skills in hypnosis, language, and sales. What have been the biggest shifts and resets you've been through on that journey, on your 20, 30, 40 years of life?
Biggest reset personally is 2006. My mother was dying quite painfully of liver cancer. It was a very terrible thing. My mother was my best, I would say one of my very dearest best friends and my greatest influence in my life. It was very hard to see her suffer. And I was undergoing some mood shifts, mood changes. I don't care. I share everything. I'm diagnosed bipolar 2. And it was not even, it had gone undiagnosed. It was just diving up and down, etc. So I was fortunate enough to discover my meditation teacher, Shinzen Young. Shinzen Young is to meditation what Einstein was to physics, in my opinion. There's no way to objectively measure that. He made meditation available to me. He made it very rigorous, very mathematical. And I started to meditate. And even though I was grieving deeply, I didn't suffer. I was in pain, but I was able to be with the pain, be with the grief without fighting it or without telling a story.
I think to my friend Terry, he's one of our previous guests, Terry Stout, he's my grief recovery guy also in Kajikana. And we talk about calm and serenity. And if you manage to find a way to get to that place, it's beautiful, because most people don't. They get swept up in the emotion of the grief and they can't just be with it and meet with it. So was that like a 6-month process? I don't know. Not that.
Well, hold on, if I could.
I will pause.
Yeah, let me unpack it a little bit. So yeah, I was able to track the feelings. Did I feel the grief gripping my chest? Now, was it local in one area? Did it spread through the whole body? I became fascinated not by the content, but by the contour, as Shinzen would say. Anything I'm saying today about meditation, I'm just cooking with his ingredients. I did not come up with any of this stuff. Any of it. And I found I was able to function and even have moments of happiness. And one of the days I was just crippled by grief. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't walk. And I literally just couldn't get my legs to move. And I was following what Shinzen said to do. And there was a moment when the grief just broke up into waves of bliss. I know people are going to say that's bullshit. That's disrespectful to the grieving process. That's just what happened for me. Now, I was very, very sad, but I was functional. I could function. I could have moments of enjoyment. And I learned through meditation a whole different way of looking about the experience, not just looking, to experience what it means to be a human being and to hold compassion for other people. Now, I'm not knocking NLP. Neuro-Linguistic Programming changed my life, made me a lot of money, made me more powerful in the world, but it never made me more compassionate. Well, I've always held compassion for my students because I identify with my students, but it never made me more compassionate on myself, or with other people other than my students. And it has changed the way I walk through the world significantly. It has given me the ability to have an incredible superpower. And this is something I teach my clients as well. which is the ability to see where people are at, Simon, without having, and listen really carefully, without having to go there for yourself. You can have the choice to go there if you want to. So I really brought this home with a story, if I may, or am I speaking too much?
Go ahead. We've gone to the real place. This is good. This is good.
So I was coaching a student. I don't normally take seduction students in field out to restaurants or bars or other places. I just don't like it. It's like pulling emotional teeth. But he said, I'll give you $10,000 cash for 90 minutes. I said, come over to the condo. I gave him the address. He comes over with a bag of money, dumps it out. I do a quick, said, okay, let's go. So I take him to a restaurant with an outdoor patio area, and I cut him loose. And this guy proceeds to crash and burn so badly. Now, Simon, have you ever had the experience of being so embarrassed for someone else that you can't take the shame they're undergoing?
Oh yeah, 100%. Many
So
times.
after 90 minutes, I pulled him out of there. And we're waiting for our cab. This was 20, 25 years ago, way before the days of Lyft or Uber. And I see a beautiful young lady about 10 feet away waiting for her cab. And I just turn and look at her and very innocuously say, hey, look, there's a beautiful lady waiting for her cab. Well, it went in the wrong ear, and she started to curse me, saying things a sailor would say, telling me to do things with parts of my anatomy they're not physically possible to do, cursing dead relatives of mine. And my student was furious. His face turned beet red. The veins popped out. He went to charge her. I don't know whether he was going to physically attack her or not, but it was going to get ugly. And I put my arm out and stopped him. I said, no, she can come for wherever she wants. We decide how we respond. Then I got her. I said, look at her. I looked right at her and pointed. I said, she's someone's sister. She was still screaming at this point. She's someone's daughter. She's someone's best friend. Somewhere, she's deeply loved. And then I shut up. And she stopped yelling. There was a moment of confusion on her face. And then she burst into tears and came running over to me, threw her arms around me, kissed me on the cheek, and just sobbed and sobbed. And she just said, between sobs, I'm so sorry. This had nothing to do with you. That was the most beautiful thing any man has ever said to me. I cannot describe the love and connection I feel for you right now. I could feel the heat coming off her body. So obviously it was more than just a loving connection. And I said, thank you very much. I'm working. We've got to go. Now, what made all that possible? Well, first of all, I was able to see where she was at without having to go there for myself. If I went there, if I got rapport with her and matched her state, I would have been furious.
Matching and escalating and all that theory of sales and rapport is like, it's great, but it's like not useful to play that game, really isn't.
Right.
No.
But I was, so I didn't ignore it, but I didn't get sucked into it.
And you didn't, one of the things I love is to make her wrong. There's a big thing about like, how dare she be that way? No, she's allowed to be that way. And you said it very quickly. It's, we get to choose how we respond. And that's the whole thing. It's that ability to pause and respond in the moment, not go, how dare she, and get triggered and hooked up. Carry on, please.
Well, but it's all useless unless you have a technique to do it. It's just
correct.
Fortune cookie advice. Fortunately, I had the training. Or I hadn't meditated yet, but I had trained myself not to take women personally. I just didn't. My whole thing is I never get rejected. I only discover if a woman wants the gift of my masculine presence. So that's what I really believe. I really believe that. So it enables me.
Also, generally in that moment, you were doing what I would call an ethical version of conversation. You weren't trying to neg her. You weren't trying to mess with her head. You just genuinely went, wow. And it wasn't some weird thing. That's the problem with that. Well, another time have that conversation, but sorry, your story.
Well, we can. We'll go there. I'll stick a pin in it. I'll remember. So what happened, what made it possible? Number one, I was able to see where she was at without having to go there for myself. And then I broke her pattern. I interrupted her pattern. What would most guys have done? They would have fought back. They would have apologized for something they didn't do, or they would have run away. People think, feel, respond, act, react from fixed patterns, ladies and gentlemen. When you break that pattern, they don't know what to do. They go into a totally suggestible state, and you take control of the frame. You step into the frame where you are the one, I'm just going to say, who has the power and the control, the leadership, if you want to use that word, of the entire situation. I led her into a better state. So I didn't make it about her. I didn't make it about me. I didn't take her first response as written in stone. I gave her radical permission to have her first response without accepting that it was her best response. These are superpowers because no one can detect that you're doing them. No one has even probably heard the concept, what to say I'm so sorry. What to say has the ability to do it. What to say has the ability to teach it. And so I didn't make it about me, didn't make it about her, radically accepted her first response, and then I interrupted her pattern. These are very, very powerful skills. But traditional sales says, no, you've got to mirror and match their state. No, you've got to stay in rapport. It would have been a disaster.
Parrot the language. I've got to parrot the language, man. That's the answer. Parroting back. She said that. Use it back to her. That's the. No, it isn't the answer. Yeah, good.
I broke rapport.
Yeah.
I broke rapport when I did something unexpected. I teach my students, my clients, you've got to break rapport. One of the reasons why your sales team isn't doing so well is they're focused on rapport rather than leadership and compliance. Frack rapport, I can say frack, right? Frack rapport, I'd rather get leadership and compliance and do it in a matter of a minute. Now, my claim is I can teach your team or teach you, if you're already a top person, to at least increase your sales by 30% in 90 days. If you're willing to take that walk, that tumble down the rabbit hole of my crazy way of thinking, because we're doing something radically different. Now, here's the thing. A technique identified as a technique destroyed or disarmed. Had she been exposed to that kind of thing before, she could have just maybe ignored it and still continued to be furious, but she'd never heard it before. She'd never encountered anyone like that. And also, when you can walk through the world like this, you really, truly are a gift to other people because you're not judging them, you're evaluating them. There's a distinction. Judgment is, this is a horrible person, this is about me. Evaluation is, I clearly see exactly what's going on.
Yeah, so and it's the behavior as well, right? It's the behavior, not the potential of that individual. There's a separation between what they're doing and who they are as a being. I think it's quite useful.
So let me close a loop. You asked me about some of the shifts or transformations that I went through. I don't exactly know.
Yeah, the shifts and resets you've been through. Because obviously
one of the big resets is I had to recognize. So I got on the internet around 1994. And if you typed in back in Alta Vista or one of the early search engines, pick up women, seduce women, get women in bed, I was the only company doing it. My business partner at the time, he and I were cranking money, just doing 5-6 seminars all over the country, going to England and doing them, cranking out money with virtually no good entrepreneurial skills, just marketing the damn thing on the internet, and word of mouth began to spread. We would have 1,000 guys. No, strike that. We would have 500 guys paying us $1,000 a seminar. We would just get huge amounts of money. And then what happened is really great marketers like Eben Pagan, who was one of my students. Eben was one of my students. He would sit in the back of the room and furiously take notes. He wrote his first book, Double Your Dating, and was living in a tiny little studio apartment on the beach. The guy has incredible focus and a great work ethic. And his company came along, ate my lunch. Then other people came along, started imitating me. Then Mystery came along, completely different. I'll give him credit. He's the only other original in the game. And pretty much ate my lunch. And that was a big shift.
Evan was, and hats off to the guy, right? He's one of the, what's funny for me, I've been online kind of like you differently, but from the early days. And there's people now that don't know about double your dating, that don't know about that early stuff. Now you're going, how's that possible? Because they're like 20 and they're learning from people who you and I know have learned from Eben and you guys, and they got no idea of why it's working and the history and the other stuff. And even though it's shifted, it really hasn't. It's really interesting conversations.
Simon, here's what I discovered. Some of the very biggest names in marketing and in sales and sales teaching or closeted Ross Jeffries get women into bed fan. I know because I've spoken to them. These are guys who are doing 100 times better than me.
I've got your CD sit under my bed still. Don't tell anybody kind of.
You do?
No,
Do
no, no,
you
no,
really?
no, 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 not me. I'm saying back in the day. So
Oh,
like,
okay. No, seriously, they really do. And it's really a shocker. Some of my best clients have been people who know me as Ross Jeffries. And my business coach said, stop hiding it. He said, you have no idea how many people are on your customer or in your customer database who use your stuff to get women who are now super successful in sales and business. And he's right. I've met people.
So was the real name Paul, and then Ross was
Paul
like.
Ross.
So
Paul
Ross
Jeffrey
Jeffries
Ross.
was the alter ego,
Paul Jeffrey Ross. I took the last name, put it first, and my middle name slightly altered last. But that's the funny thing. Some of the biggest names have used my stuff when they were kids. We have a mutual friend who I won't mention. I'll mention him off the air.
Privately, yeah.
Privately, who just I can't say, but let's just say I have fans and friends, and I think that's hilarious, absolutely hilarious. I do know this about my marketing. Everyone knows everyone who's older than 40 knows who Dan Kennedy is.
Exactly, yeah. Dan Kennedy, yeah.
Dan used to use my copywriting from my original Get Women stuff as examples of great copywriting.
Well, it was. I think the best bit was there was a clarity about it that so much of online is noise now, right? And there's so much of every interaction isn't just, this is what I'm doing. I can get you this result. Do you want this? And you guys were always really bold about what you were there to do. It was like, if you can't do this, come on this workshop and you'll learn to do this. It's a very not simple offer, but it's a practical, good offer. Do you want coffee? I've got coffee. Do you want a coffee?
And I had a wild guarantee. I don't know if I can say this on the air. First of all, I had 2 guarantees. You can bleep it out if you want to. So we may have to do one of these. My guarantee was you don't get laid, I don't get paid. That was my guarantee. Yep. And I gave people a 1-year money back, 100%, no questions asked, money back guarantee. If they can't get laid with at least 3 hot women and they really apply the techniques, they have to really apply it, I'll give them their money back. And I had a Jewish money back guarantee. If I'm not 100% satisfied with your money, I'll send it back to you.
Nice. That's the way to be. That's good. That's good.
No, I can make that joke because I'm Jewish, but you'll still get hate mail.
I won't get any. It's all good. The whole point is it's about being adult and being real, right? And you've got me to go in the conversation.
If you're adult and real, you'll get canceled nowadays. But no one has ever tried to cancel me. That's funny. They've tried to cancel other people in the pickup game. No one has ever come after me. I guess because I'm just a legend. I went to I don't go anymore, but I went to a pickup artist convention and I walked by these 2 young guys in their 20s. They had to be 20 years old tops. And I heard them whisper, the legend. So when I meet women, they say, what do you do? And I say, oh, I'm a living legend. And they say, no, you're not. I said, okay, I'm a superhero. They say, what are you talking about? No, you're not. And I'll say, look me in the eyes, use your adult ability to tell when someone's BSing you. I am a superhero and a living legend. And they say, you got to tell me more. It's a great way to get attention.
Love it. So we off script, but I like that. I'm going to stay off script, but sort of slightly navigated a little bit. So I really have a sense of this from what you've shared. Often I talk about these 3 aspects of pausing, stopping, and resetting. That can be on an activity in life and a business. My sense is that you find it hard to stop. I think meditation and pausing is good. Resetting you can do. Do you find it? Is that correct, or have I got that assessment wrong?
No. It's just in this atmosphere where we have.
No. Not just you and I meant, but in general, which of those 3 do you find hardest? Because some people often, like, you're the alpha sales guy.
Well, I'm diagnosed ADHD. The meditation has helped me tremendously, and then I've done some bizarre healing stuff last weekend. I'll tell you about it in a moment. I have found resetting and going on to the next task to be difficult. I'll get absorbed in the task and 3 hours will go by. And then I'll see, I have a spare half hour. Do I really want to get started on another task? That spare half hour, I'll get distracted. 2 hours will go by when I could have done another task. And the idea, for example, I don't use social media. Maybe I should. I'm very limited. The idea of sitting down every day at the exact time, posting something is anathema to me. It would be like gargling
It's
Drano.
worse than that. From the old days, when the online stuff, I ran drum and bass nights and NLP stuff back in the day, and many online projects we've been involved in over the last 2 decades. Back then, you could actually be very focused, and now cutting through is really easy and hard simultaneously. There's so much noise, so much zombie stuff out there that it's crazy.
And attention spans have dropped to nearly
milliseconds. Like 3 seconds of attention to video, you're lucky to get. If it's not the first microsecond of they're hooked by it's crazy. And your mindset thing, the language, the ADHD thing, do you think that's, and you know about NLP, plasticity of the brain, do you think that is a genetic thing? Is that an upbringing thing? Is it a nature?
You know what? If I turned my phone on, I could show you a screenshot of my brain. I had SPECT scans, single photon emission computerized tomography. Say that 10 times fast.
Wow.
Scans in 2006 that showed there are parts of my brain, the inferior orbital prefrontal cortex. Now, all you women who are sapiosexuals are getting turned on. Sapiosexual is someone who's attracted to intelligence. My inferior orbital prefrontal cortex doesn't work right when I'm trying to focus on a task. I can't switch tasks. I can focus, but switching tasks is difficult for me.
Got it. Well, it's good to know, by the way. I'm almost the opposite. I'm a multi-switcher. So I like switching quickly. My biggest challenge actually is stopping. I find it really hard to really stop. Even though I've done Tai Chi meditation, that bit of switching off is tricky. But that's also a gift, right? This is part of the thing. There's no right or wrong in life. We get to be ourselves and navigate it. And I have a sense what the answer is. It probably came from your NLP and meditation days. But if you could send back, like, you know, NLP and timeline stuff, if you could send back to that 10-year-old Paul, you know, your biggest insight, wisdom gift, what's the bit that you wish you knew earlier, right? What's that?
Oh my God. Now we're really stripping bare everything. Well, I came from a family that gave messages that were both very empowering and very disruptive.
Okay.
Messages I got from my mother, who was my primary teacher. My father, bless his heart, was a great dad. He was working 3 jobs to put food on the table for 6 kids. And so he didn't have time to be around and be a teacher.
And he was out there providing for the family, right?
He was a provider, right? Nowadays, that's mocked as something that's toxic masculinity, which I don't understand.
Yeah, why is he not making 100K online in crypto? Come on, it's about it's a really bizarre thing out there. Yeah.
No, he worked like a dog. And so my mother was my primary teacher. My mother gave me permission. She said, I was never punished for coming up with new ideas or for thinking outside the box. She encouraged it and rewarded it. Now, I come from a Jewish family. As I said earlier, I'm Jewish. I'm not religious. I don't believe in it. But I distinctly remember maybe being 6 years old, sitting at the dinner table and saying, I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus. And rather than getting angry, my mother said, well, what do Christians believe? And I said, I don't know. She said, okay, I want a book report tomorrow, by tomorrow evening, and it better be good about Christianity and what they believe. If you write a good report, I'll give you a silver dollar. This was in the early 60s. Money was actually silver and gold in the United States, not paper. Paper was traded in. You could take paper and trade it at the bank for silver. And if you don't write a good one, you can't go outside and play for a week. So I was motivated to put my research where my mouth was.
Yeah.
But my mother gave me permission, and she told me, one day you're going to be a great man and you're going to be a Johnny Appleseed of ideas. I said, who's Johnny Appleseed? She said, Johnny Appleseed went from town to town planting little apple seeds, and he'd come back and visit every year, and they would become trees until he could eat the apples. I thought, And I was sassing her one day. She said, if you don't knock it off, Paul, you're going to grow up to be an iconoclast. I said, what's an iconoclast, Mommy? She said, that's someone who goes around kicking over other people's sacred ideas and getting them very angry and upset. I remember distinctly saying, yes, I want to be an iconoclast, Mommy. How do I grow up to be an iconoclast? But that's the good permission. The not so useful information was you're smarter than everybody else. You don't have to listen to anybody. And we were very competitive. So rather than make allies of my competitors early on in the seduction game, I attacked them mercilessly online. I said they were worthless. I attacked some people who are huge names now, and I regret it deeply. I was not given the message that cooperation doesn't mean that I'm any less. And that really, really hurt me. I don't blame anyone for it. I'm just simply saying that's how it is.
It's a really useful message, and it's the wider, as much as we need competition to get better, that win-win-win. You and I aren't fighting on the podcast. We're coming together to create something different. This is you or the guest to share your wisdom with the listener to add value. And there's so much good out there. And I think that's it's a really useful lesson, by the way.
And that was a mistake. So I would go back and tell my 10-year-old self, listen, those messages about being smart are very useful, but you're not smarter than everyone. And you can learn from anyone if you get yourself in the right place. I would have told myself that. But you live, as my mother would say, may she rest in the arms of whatever power is out there. You live and you learn. And when I first got into NLP, she said, oh, this is just another kick you're on. And a couple of years later, she was in tremendous pain from a heart surgery. I walked into the intensive care unit. Her face was gray, right? And so I did some NLP and hypnosis stuff because she was crying in pain, and the pain went away. And from then on, she was a believer in me and a believer in NLP.
Yeah. Now, and you met the source. Like I've known Richard in different ways, and obviously Paul McKenna and the guys, and Bernardo Moya, right? And then making it pop in the UK. What I found fascinating, and you've been around Richard, NLP was about modeling excellence.
Yes.
And that's the like I hear when you did meditation, maybe not even realizing it, you learn to model quicker than most others. And once you get that mastery in one area, you can apply it in other areas. And so I know, like for me, NLP has been transformational in my life and helping other people. But generally, you and I are walking around going, let's use technique 2 now, right? It's just part of who you are when you're present to it, and sort of unconscious competence kicks in. And it's that learning mindset as well. I love that.
I think one of the reasons why Richard really liked me and likes me to this day is he saw that I very rapidly understood his baby, that it was not about techniques. It was about the thought processes from which the techniques distilled. And he saw that I got it. And it was, what a delight. I never thought, how many years has it been? 1988? I don't even want to think about it. 36 years. I never thought that long ago that Richard would be a guest on my show. No one even knew what could even conceptualize.
No. This is where we're in a very interesting time, right, for technology, and why these recordings are happening now. Like, to do this back when you went online, this is $100,000, and even then you can't put a video online. It's like it was. The technology jumps have been so differential, and yet fundamentally that requirement to do communication, to self-manage, to do sales, and find different ways to do it in a world that's really noisy is so vital.
Now we have AI. I'll tell you a story. A year and a half ago, a friend of mine, Dustin, who's like a brother to me and is brilliant with technology, I was visiting him on his boat, and he brought up on the screen something called AI. I'd never seen AI before. And it was an early version of ChatGPT. And he said, just type in a question. And I was stunned. And he kept doing it. He said, now, how many Blockbuster video stores? You don't know what Blockbuster
I do. We had them, and they were there, and then gone. Yeah.
He said, how many Blockbuster video stores do you see nowadays? I said, none. He said, how big is Netflix? I said, $100 billion? I don't know. He said, you can either be Netflix or you can be Blockbuster. Put yourself out of business. Let's build a speed seduction AI. So that's what we did. We have speedseduction.ai. I am no longer going to be coaching seduction unless someone wants to pay me $50,000 for a weekend. Then they have to come out to me, or $100,000. Then otherwise, it's all going to speedseduction.ai. I am putting myself out of business. That goddamn thing, you can clap if you want to, that goddamn thing gets smarter every time people use it. And it now answers about 90% like me.
Let's going to jump in, right? Because it's really interesting. And given your background in sort of the relationship dating area, did you ever think there would be artificial AI making 100K a month as a non-real virtual girlfriend that's using the stuff you're talking about on
No, Dustin.
the
No,
guys are
Dustin.
falling in love with the thing they know is not even real.
Dustin was
That boggles my head, right?
Dustin was telling me about that too, and he showed me that you can pay a certain fee a month, and you can create the girlfriend you want. You can design
But
her.
it's not real. It's like
That's a problem in Japan. In Japan, the number of 35 and up men who are virgins is extraordinary. Japan's birth rate has plummeted because these guys just. One of my students could go out to Japan and do a speed seduction seminar. I've licensed him to do it. But it's just, who knows? I look at my great nieces and great nephews, who are the oldest one, I think is 15, 14. And I'm thinking, what kind of world are they going to grow up in? What kind of technology are they going to see? And the funny thing about AI, it's like when the internet first came along, it was being touted as this is the information superhighway. No, it turned into porn and cute cats. Now, I love cute cats. I've got two myself. They're snoozing after their breakfast. But you see, it's very interesting. Human nature doesn't change. Cave paintings, there are cave paintings, probably people getting it on. The ancient Vedic Hindu scriptures, that's where the Kama Sutra comes from, various positions. People are going to move towards their most primitive urges, no matter what the technology.
And why do you think in a world of, let's say, free porn, right, do people pay? That boggles my brain, right? I get it and I don't get it. Like that, back
I know
in
the answer.
90.
I know the answer. I know for a reason. So for a brief while, I had an entrepreneurial mentor. It turned out to be a total fraud. His wife is a porn star. Won't name her. And they opened up a church. They were porn star pastors. She was a porn star pastor. And I talked to her about it quite frequently. And she said, Paul, I'm a FinDom. I said, what's a FinDom? She says, guys will send me money.
That's the stuff that scares me, that it exists and legal. And I get why it does in the modern world. Everybody's adults. And I also know, you and I know, most guys aren't that adult, even though they think they are, right? Carry on. It's fascinating.
She said, all they want me to do is humiliate them and say, you worthless bleeping worm, you have the tiniest pecker I've ever seen. I want to step on that thing. Yep. And they'll send her $50,000. And then they'll pay her $50,000 cash to come clean her condo.
To be the slave. Yeah.
Be the slave. And I'm like, what? Wait, huh? These are guys who are worse than simps. So let me define it, ladies and gentlemen. A simp is a guy who's not getting any sexual relations from a woman, but he pays for everything. Maybe he pays her rent. He's so desperate for validation from a woman that he'll do anything. That's a simp. Then below a simp are the incels. The incels are involuntary celibates. They don't even try to talk to women. So my AI, Dustin came along and said to me, look, forget about the middle range of people. Your model of selling courses, recorded courses, is pretty much broken.
Yeah.
Go for the higher end people who are making millions. And I've had seduction clients who are very, very wealthy, but they have no game. They accidentally met a woman who's attracted to them, right? And they're divorced, or she cheated on them. Now they're stuck. So there's the high end. He said, Paul, there's a lot of money in those millions of incels. You can have 1 million incels paying you $25 a month and not have to work. And frankly, as speaking entrepreneur, businessman, yeah. I would rather make $1 million a year not doing any work than make $5 million a year working like a dog. Less money, but
life is really important. And also the thing I know is sort of half, if you're listening, not knowing my mindset and Paul's too well, like there's something about doing the right thing underneath this conversation, right? And we won't mention some of the names out there. What worries me, you and I are not in our 20s anymore. There are kids 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 that are being molded into what it is to be a male, woman, pick your label, whatever they want to choose. And the models they're moving into for relationships are, I think, really weird. And I'm sure it was back the same in the 60s and the 30s and the 1800s. There's always been that going on. But there's a weird like separation of sacredness, transaction, reality, commoditization that is a question of where we go as society. And underneath it, let's be honest, what part of why the show's here, there's a growing number, despite how long for it to be doing NLP for now? Like 40 years, 50 years?
I started studying it in 1987. So how many years is that? 37.
30 something, right? But there's like at least 3-4 decades of advanced psychology work and other bits, and yet depression and suicide rates are going up. Sales is getting more businesses going bankrupt in sales and business. There's this weird reality, like despite all this help and tech, the phone and attention. Okay, I hear you. Yep.
Phone and attention and loneliness is an epidemic.
Huge.
We are living in a society that's increasingly alienated. And I left LA. I lived in LA into my mid 50s. I'm 65. I left it because
where in LA were you? Were you in downtown?
I was in Marina del Rey, Venice area.
Like beautiful place, yeah.
Beautiful, but LA itself isolating. Because if I wanted, I had friends, but if I wanted to see a friend at like 6 o'clock at night, it could take me 2 hours to get to them if they were.
And you drive down the road for an hour to get somewhere. And the reason I asked whereabouts in LA, I love LA, but like you say, Venice Beach, there's a superficiality during the daytime, and at night, a really dark side.
Not anymore. Venice Beach is a homeless camp. It's been destroyed.
There you go.
I moved to San Diego. Here I built a community of friends. I can see them virtually. They're busy, but they're 20 minutes away, tops.
Yeah.
And so I built a community. They're like family to me. My family is in Orange County and LA. I go up to LA once every 3 months. I hold my nose, go up there, have Friday night Shabbat. That's, for those of you who don't know, it's Jewish family dinner where you have different they bless the wine and the kids and the bread. And it's nice. You catch up and gossip in my family. But I try to avoid it. So we have so much alienation and so much loneliness. Depression is not just in the brain. I do believe it's partially in the brain, but you don't see depression in societies that have large tribes where there's constant contact and there's village. You don't see it the way at the rates or in the way you see it in Western culture that's increasingly commoditized, and there's misinformation and disinformation and malinformation. I saw a guy named Eric Weinstein. I don't know if you've ever seen Eric Weinstein. Super brilliant guy.
That Eric, different one.
Have you ever heard of Lex Friedman or Friedman?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's been on Lex's show many times. But Eric talks about malinformation. Malinformation is when you go in any media outlet, particularly outline, it's not misinformation or disinformation. It's considered malinformation because you're exposing things that people in the power structure don't want you talking about. Okay. And when you're getting malinformation, there's a campaign to discredit you, to attack you. So you're taking attention off that. So now people are confused. People are living in their own bubbles. You watch news that is not news. Fox News is not news. CNN is not news. It's editorial content that's being twisted and promoted as news. So I think we're living in a society where we're distracted, overloaded, and isolated. We are orbiting the dark star of ADHD and narcissism. And that's going to lead to a poison society.
So what do people do about this, right? Like, you're skilled, you're smart. What does the listener do to help them and their friends? What can they do today? What's a simple thing they can do that will start them resetting? Or because some people listening in are having bad times, some listening in are doing really well, right? And you and I know the entrepreneur thing, by the way, more than most. You could be doing $1 million a year plus in business and be close to really bad breakdown and burnouts, right? That happens a lot. Like, that's never going to happen. They were 5 mil up and then minus 5 mil down. One of my best friends from school, I met up with him a few years back. I had no idea he'd got to 20 million net worth sterling to 3 million in debt. And he was at suicide point because of it. And it wasn't even his fault. And it's never a fault thing, right? But it's that.
I'm a Buddhist. I'm a Buddhist, not entirely. I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not anything. But I like Buddhist teaching. One of the things that's, and I've had direct experience of this in my meditation practice. So let's have a little lesson in Buddhism. First thing is anicca. Anicca means impermanence, that everything is in a constant state of flow and flux. Nothing lasts, everything changes. Another one is anatta. Anatta means no self as thing. There's not a thing in there called the self. Self is an ever-changing, ever-flowing process arising diminishing, expanding. Excuse me, I hit the microphone. Expanding, contracting. I've had that direct experience of the self dissolving, and also the sense of separation between self and world. Just not even a minute, momentary seconds. I've had that direct experience. But Buddhism says everything changes and life is filled with suffering. And so the answer to it is to have compassion for yourself and others, be of service. And people misinterpret Buddhism. They say, get rid of all your wants, get rid of all your needs. It's not what it says. It says, get rid of your attachments to them. That's a much harder thing to do than say, I think, look, I'm no multimillionaire and I don't want to try for it. I would rather live simply, comfortably, and at a minimum, as a minimalist rather than accumulate more stuff. I have a friend, he's not a friend anymore. I couldn't bear his racism and sexism. He really was bad. But he said some very wise things. And one of the things he said to me, he said, when we were kids, it was perfectly fine to be middle class. There was no problem with having a home and a car and the kids going to school and making enough money to have some savings. That was fine. Now everyone has to be a superstar. Everyone has to be a Kardashian. Look at me, make millions, have cars.
It's not even millions, it's billions. It's really, it's like, I'm an accountant by training, 10 years in banking. The actual statistics are insane. What people think, back to the dating arena or the relationship and the business thing. Oh, they should be earning 100K a month. It's less than 1% of 1% of population global. And even in London, I don't know how it is in LA and San Diego for you, to buy like a family home in London, you're talking 5-10 mil.
I'm going to go visit my friend, Michelle. Michelle is one of the most successful entrepreneurs I know, and she's been through the trenches. She lives in a very nice neighborhood of San Diego called Del Cerro. And she bought a house with her partner, who's a stand-up comic who does pretty well. That house is maybe 1,800 square feet, and they paid millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars for that. For that amount of money, you could get a ranch, a palace in Kansas or Montana or Kentucky. It's outrageous. So yeah, and we could get into government and politics and
let's not go to it, but it's definitely a thing of our own making, and there is a bit of a self-selection. And
I think the aliens are going to come down and save us. I believe that. I believe in that stuff. Not aliens, but I've seen UFOs on multiple occasions.
He's trying to get me cancelled, boys and girls. It's all good. It's all good. No, I'm only half joking because I'm half joking, and this is that forum, right? And it's there's experiences you have in life that when you had a tangible experience, not in a manic episode, not being bipolar, there is that space of actual reality experienced, and it's fascinating. And is that separation able to like see the behaviors and what's so different clarity. One of my friends went to a workshop last weekend in the millionaire mindset space, right? Without many names. God. And the irony is, one of my other friends loves the guy, but the person that went along didn't realize how much he'd been hypno-triggered. Does that make sense? Yes. He was thinking like, oh my God.
The initials of the guy doing it are MS, right?
No, but it could be.
Yeah, you know who I'm referring to.
Different guy, not that one.
All right.
But I was very aware that while he thought he'd been improved, he was being motivated to play a game that wasn't his game of his choosing. And it's one of those games that may not actually help, which is really the difference, right? There's what I love about where you're at today, Paul, is you've done that inner work with the meditation, with the mindset, with the sales and the business. And there's a grounded reality that you're making a path that works for you. And I love that you were there for your mum and able to help her through those things. It's the hard stuff when you actually, like, there are some people out there that are detached. They don't care. It's like, yeah, they went through that. Doesn't matter. Most of us have a heart, and at some level you crack that shell, the Buddhists would say, and you have that heart-to-heart connection. You go, okay, there's a reality that actually isn't about money, and money can't fix that problem.
I agree. And now I am motivated to beat my own personal best. It's not about getting approval from other people. It's about saying, this is fantastic. I have something written on my back. I have a lot of different slogans and sayings and affirmations. One of them that says, great job, on fire, keep going, you got this. Nice. And I'm always looking to improve. One of my big areas where I want to give credit to something else, Simon. I have a wonderful team. For example, without my operations manager, I'm not being humble, I'd be out on the street. My trainer, Katie's changed my life more than, well, as much as Bandler, because Katie is my physical trainer. I am stronger now. And when I work out with her, I can always beat my personal best because she has a way of bringing it. She coaxes me and she's got insights. She's been planning things for my training a year ahead,
Beautiful.
thinking I know where he's going to be. She cooks my meals. Here's my point. When I work out, I'm always going, this is fantastic. Let's move it to the next level. I can always do better. I'm not trying to compete with the muscle guy down the street because I can't, but I like to compete with myself, give myself credit, love on myself as I am, and yet try to improve. I want to introduce one more idea because you've been very generous with your time. I'm constantly looking to improve. And about a year and a half ago, I thought my moods are still not where I want them to be. I'm properly medicated and that's managed, but they're not where I want to be. So I got into a form of therapy called DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. I'm bringing it up for one reason. It relates to what we're talking about. So DBT seeks to resolve the apparent contradiction between accepting yourself as you are and wanting to improve. Those things seem to be contradictory. How can you radically accept yourself and yet be driven or highly motivated to improve? How do you do that? And DBT, through techniques I don't have time to explain, resolves that beautifully, beautifully. So I'm constantly on a healing journey. I don't know if you can see this. My hand is pretty steady. I had the very slightest tremor. I went to this whacked out healing thing. I could not pick up a glass of water without it shaking.
Wow.
And I can pick up a glass of water now effortlessly, no shake. I went to this weird healing thing where they take a soccer ball with different symbols on it and they have you follow it with your eyes while they talk about traumas. We didn't even think to talk about this and it healed completely. Here's my point.
I told you the alchemy call. I helped with a guy called Joshua Isaacs forward eye yoga, which is Vedic eye movement therapy from 2000 years ago, and brought that to the West.
They knew that. See, these guys were so in advance.
They knew weird stuff, and the thing is, they weren't making a big deal. They'd just go, look over there, do this, and suddenly the kid would be better, and off they go. And it was less about the marketing of some infomercial at 3 a.m. It was, sorry, carry on. I love that. There's definitely a blend, by the way, of this Western, Eastern, Northern, Southern, Asian, Chinese.
That's Shinzen's big dream, is to take the Western science of objective measurement and the Eastern science of mind and have a full mating between them.
Beautiful.
And it's a brilliant big mission. But I want to circle back to one more thing, because I know how to open and close loops. So this is one of my training from NLP. We talked about these millionaire mindset things.
Yeah.
I've been to a few of them, and I got so disgusted by the narcissism because the guy would show pictures of his here's
my 10 Ferraris and here's my boats and my house.
And he'd say, who wants $10 million? Yeah. Who wants to be a multi? Yeah. No one ever said, I want to bring clean drinking water to 100 million children in Africa. It's me. The whole idea of the secret that the universe exists to drop the last 30 pounds of fat off your ass or find your ideal partner and make you wealthy. I don't think that's why the universe is around. It's a narcissism and a solipsism. For your listeners, I'm sorry if I appear to be talking.
Let's go dense. Explain it. Solipsism. Explain that one.
Solipsism is the idea. Well, it's two ideas. One, it's a theory of knowledge. It says the only thing we can be certain about is our own mind. We can't be certain about anything else. But the other form of solipsism is the idea that you are the only reality, the only real thing, and everything else is just a projection of your own mind, a cardboard cutout in the movie of which you're a star.
You're the main character, everybody else is NPCs. Yeah.
It's, to be really fancy schmancy, it's ontological narcissism. It's absolutely crazy, but this is what the secret is about. You create your own reality, really. So my brother created the leukemia that's been slowly torturing him to death for 15 years. The children slaughtered by the Nazis created that reality. It takes away compassion and the courage to fight human evil and the duty to step up and correct things that are wrong because there's no victims.
I'm going to say gently, here. It's the stuff I have most been challenged by in 20 years of not making other people wrong. And there is a bit about certain mindsets where they are, and like you're describing very cleanly. And I love how you, and there is a bit of, we need people to stand up and wake up and let's just pause, stop, reset, as I would say. Let's get really straight. That isn't okay. Let's stop that now as a collective. And yet it carries on. The water, the food, the shelter, the war. There's a need for, let's say, human conversations. But some of the stuff happening, I mentioned on my friend having some stuff with her son at school today, being bullied really badly. There's a reality to life that should not be there, but it is. And my hope at some point out of these podcasts and the work people like you and others do is it will get better and improve. And maybe it has to get worse before it gets better, but it seems to be going on for a very, very long time, which is fascinating.
There's something from my Jewish background. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. However, there are things in Judaism that I strongly believe in. One is an idea called tikkun olam, which means to heal the world, that it's our job as humans to heal the world. And the other one is the pursuit of justice. There's something in Torah, and again, why an atheist is quoting Torah, I don't know, but it says justice you must pursue. And I believe in that. Those two Jewish ideas, I think, are very important to me. And it's germane to what we're talking about, because no, you don't create your own reality. Sometimes you write the story of your life, but ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grow up, put on your big boy girl and your big boy and your big girl pants, because sometimes life writes your story for you. And I don't care what multimillionaire, what millionaire mindset teacher or manifestation teacher teaches you, both aspects are true. Both aspects are true. And so get used to it. Live with courage, live with compassion, and live with clarity and a freaking sense of humor, because you need it. You need it.
And I'm loving this, Paul. We are going to wrap up shortly. Is there any final thought for somebody listening in? They want to go, I listened to that show. Oh my God, I love when Paul, like, what's the biggest thing you want them taking away from this show today? Because we covered a lot of stuff, some humorous, some funny, but some real gems of real heart lived wisdom there, right? I really appreciate you for.
Here's what I'd say. First of all, it's okay to powerfully recognize that I'm a genius who you want to learn from and do business with. That's okay. And you'll put some links down there. I'm sure you will. All right. I think the most important thing we've covered is suffering is part of life, but sometimes there's unnecessary suffering. If you have the right technology, you can alleviate it and you can even win. Don't get too big for your britches, because my mother taught me another great lesson. I want to leave everyone with this lesson. I was sassing her and bragging. She said, watch out for your Achilles heel, Paul. I said, what's that? She said, well, Achilles' mother wanted him to be invulnerable, so she grabbed him by the ankles and dipped him in the river Styx. But because she couldn't dip his ankles, he was vulnerable, and he was shot in the ankle and in the heel with a poison arrow by Paris over the city of Troy. So watch out for your Achilles heel. So go ahead, build yourself up, do the best you can. Watch out for your Achilles heel, whatever that might be. Simon, I'm so glad we met through that JV thing. This has been a wonderful conversation, has it not?
No, I'm really loving it. And as I hoped, the more we get into it, the more there is to explore and expand on. Thank you so much for today. Do listen back to the show. And if you've got value, check out Paul's website and resources. What's the best website of yours you want to go to learn about you and what you're up to today with the sales stuff?
Sure. So I have my new book. Here's what they do. Go to Amazon, grab my new book, The Subconscious Sales Advantage. I have my other book. Grab them both if you want to, but grab my new book, The Subconscious Sales Advantage. That's number one. If you're interested in getting laid and you want to tap into my genius,
Forming right relationships, yes.
Getting laid, which is the start of a relationship. If you can't attract a woman, then you're just going to be the big brother, the buddy, the friend. You won't get a one-nighter, and you won't get a relationship. So what I'm really teaching is attraction at will, attraction engineering. Go to speedseduction.ai. It's a 7-day free trial. Then it's $25 a month. Unsubscribe anytime you want. And if you're interested, if you already are doing like millions and you want to take it to the next level without conventional sales techniques, without conventional wisdom, without the stuff that you're just pressing harder, but the needle's barely moving, you can contact me by going to speakerpaulross.com/apply. speakerpaulross.com/apply. This is not fake scarcity. I only have time because I do so much for my clients. I take 3 people a quarter. That's no bullshit. I swear to you on my cats' lives, that's true. Simon, thank you. Let's chat a bit off the air.
We will. Thank you so much, Paul. And again, listen back to the show. Do subscribe on Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, and do check out Paul's amazing resources for you there. See you guys next time. That was Pause Stop Reset. Bye for now. Once again, I'm Simon Headley. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pause Stop Reset, which is brought to you by the team at simonx.com and published by thesimpleidea.com. So you get maximum value, and to access all the bonuses and gifts, make sure to head to pausestopreset.com, register and explore the portal. And if you're looking for great people, check out onesmartnetwork.com. If you've enjoyed the show, do give us a positive review, subscribe, and share this episode with friends. I can't wait to share our next episode with you. Till then, remember you can always choose to pause, stop, reset.